Wow, what an intro.
What an intro. Hey, good morning, Alan.
Good evening, Leanne.
Welcome to Talk the Walk. We got even more applause. It's just amazing what you can do. If you need to build your self-worth, you just jump on these and play applause for yourself. I think that's quite fun.
Nice way to spend the morning. I agree.
So today's topic, Alan, we're looking at success trumping perfection. And this is an Alanism, like one of the originals, right? Tell us about this. Like, what does success mean to you? What is perfection? Let's define those terms.
Well, success is being able to meet objectives of yours or your clients or someone else's so that you're happy, the other part is happy, you've moved ahead, you've moved forward. And let's assume that they're positive ones, that success doesn't mean, undermining somebody. But in any case, that's success. Perfection is the elusive, unattainable state of having no flaws where no one can critique you for anything. And of course, that doesn't work. And one of the reasons that people seek perfection is that it allows them to procrastinate so that they don't have to produce anything because it's not yet perfect. And you can see the short term with people who write and then edit every sentence, and so they never finish writing. And you can see it longer term where people don't meet deadlines because it's just not perfect.
Yeah, I think you mentioned deadline. A deadline is what drives me just to get it successful. And I think there's a great quote. I think it was Seth Godin, one of your peers, and he said, the Daily Show or the Tonight Show goes live at this time every night because it has to, not because it's ready. And I think that's a great way of using deadlines. What do you think about that? Like, you have pretty aggressive deadlines on your work, even your books.
Well, I think, first of all, I think Seth is right, and I think he's a really great creative guy. But, you meet a deadline and it's never perfect. And so some people love to work just before the deadline because it shoots adrenaline through their body. It's not distress, it's eustress, it's positive stress. And it shoots adrenaline, and they love to work on deadline. But other people hate to work on deadline because it's just too much pressure. So, for example, I like to lead a stress-free life. My wife says I'm a carrier. I don't have stress myself. So this is near the end of June, and all of my July columns are done. My podcasts are 2 weeks ahead. My videos are 2 weeks ahead. So there's no urgent deadlines bearing down on me. And that's just comfortable for me. But, people write me and say, I found 7 typos in your book. And I say, there are 12, you better go back. I mean, I don't really give a rap about typos. I don't give a rap about perfection. There's no meal you've ever had, no trip you've ever taken, no experience you've ever undergone that's been perfect.
And I think it's all about like what is perfection, and success is at this moment of time, this is the best that I could do. And I think you used to talk about getting it to 80% and then going with it. I've got so many like peers, friends that just hesitate. They just hesitate. And you've seen it too, right? In your community.
Well, first of all, are there bears in Australia? I don't recall. No. So here's the United States phrase. You might change this for kangaroos. I don't know. But if the group of you encounter a bear in the woods, you do not have to be the fastest runner. You just have to be the second slowest. And so you don't have to be perfect. You just got to be good enough. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that when people seek perfection, I said they procrastinate. It's interesting. The fear of producing something that's less than perfect and therefore subject to critique is greater than the fear of being critiqued for not producing something at all.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you with that. And I think that's, after working with you, I'm getting used to just pushing things out and not associating investing more time, energy, and effort equaling more value. I think that's the association that needs to be broken, is that, if I take more time on it, but it still haunts me sometimes. Like I'll finish something and I think, oh, maybe I should go back and rework it because that was too easy. What would you suggest, Alan?
Well, what I would suggest is it finished to a satisfactory degree? Is it finished to a degree where whomever you are producing it for, whether it's you or someone else, is happy? Not is it the best one ever done? Not could you do it better? Of course you could probably do it better, but at what cost? At what cost? And so we have to be, our self-esteem has to be satisfactory enough that we can produce something that's good without worrying if it could be better. When I was early in my consulting career, I dealt with, in fact, I made my mark really by criticizing quality circles and things. And I said the tolerances are too small. It's ridiculous, you know? And everybody was trying to get zero errors and flawless work to the extent they had the secretaries rearranging their drawers. I said, it doesn't matter where the stapler is, you know? It doesn't matter if a customer has a complaint twice a year. It really doesn't. The customer's not going away so long as you have valuable stuff.
Yeah. Do you think it's, we've got a nice, actually, I might read this comment from Dee Dee. Great to have you here, Dee Dee. She says, I love the pressure of working in the newsroom and hearing we were 2 minutes short and 12 minutes to go. Dee Dee, I'm a deadline person as well. I love getting that adrenaline, and I won't move until I do get that shot of adrenaline. Is it possible to give myself a fake deadline, Alan, so I feel that rush for producing a newsletter in December?
Yeah, if you want to create a rush, I mean, one thing is to create a tight deadline, but another thing is to say to yourself, I am going to do this now. I'm not going to go on to something else. I'm not going to say I'll get back to it because I have another few hours today. I am going to do this now. So I post on, what is it now? X? Twitter?
Yes, you got that right.
Has it gone to Y? Has it gone to Y?
Not yet.
Still
Not yet.
Okay.
Still
So I post on X every morning, and it takes me 30 seconds. However, sometimes I look at the screen and I say, gee, I wonder what I should say. And I'm tempted to go on with my morning routine, go onto LinkedIn and go onto my blog and so forth. But I say, no. I'm here and putting something. And so I look around, and my challenge now is, what is it going to be? I remember once I was in Nantucket on vacation. I had to do that morning. And it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm looking outside. There are robins all over the lawn. And I'm thinking, well, early bird catches the worm. And then it occurred to me that the early worm gets eaten. And that's what I wrote about.
Yeah, you're very good at observing those things. And look, so Dee Dee loves deadlines. We also got Sarah here. Great to see you, Sarah. Sarah is, I'm like Alan in terms that I look to get things done early. I don't feel I do great work under pressure. Yeah, I think so it's good that there's different ways of working it. And I think it's just picking up your style as well. Now, on the topic of success, I've got a question here that was pre-submitted by Frank. And Frank asks, in terms of being successful, how do you talk the walk when you are new in a field and you don't have a lot of experience yet? Alan, what would you say to Frank?
Well, I would say the following. Before Fred Smith decided to create FedEx, there was no hub and spoke method of delivery. I would tell him that Amazon started as a book distributor. I would tell him that Dyson is not in the vacuum cleaner business and the air movement business. Now, why I'm saying these things is what you need are good ideas. You don't need a raft of experience, and people are constantly beating themselves. This is part of the perfectionism thing. Oh, I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough experience. Well, people advertise, I want a candidate with 6 years of experience. Well, if they've had 6 years of lousy experience, what good is that? Or 1 year of experience 6 times over. It's no good. So I would suggest to Frank, he asks a good question. Be original, be contrarian, be provocative, and think of ways to talk to people, if you want to talk the walk, where they say, I've never looked at it that way before. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah. And I think part of it is being provocative and just sort of asking those questions as well. And you're so right. Like, ever since working with you, and once I hear a client saying, oh, we've never heard it that way, something I shared with a client that I worked with this week, we were talking about, I think it's related to your dynamic capture, but how sometimes in a conversation, Alan, you'll say to a potential client or a prospect, oh, you have a CSP problem. And they're like, what's that? And you'll just make it up on the spot. Now, I'm not going to make you do that now, but what is the value of just making up acronyms on the spot?
It's a complete situational pitfall, CSP, right?
Well done.
Well, the benefit is that you come across as an expert. You're also providing the client or the prospect with the information that maybe there's some things that he or she doesn't know about that they're going to learn from you. And the third thing is that it sets up this wall of authority where they say, okay, this person's been around. Okay, I've never heard that. So as long as you're quick on your feet and you're not looking for perfection. In other words, with CSP, if I stopped and said, okay, so it's cursory search of but what if maybe I should have a better one? I'm done.
Yeah, you're done.
You got to hit it right away.
Yeah, but that takes practice, right? I mean, so ever since working with you, I now drive, when I'm driving, I look at number plates and the 3 letters on someone's car and I try to make something up.
Oh
So
my
that,
God, I've created a monster.
yes, you've created a monster, but it makes my drives interesting. Now, talking of success, we also have a comment from YouTube. Paolo, great to have you here, Paolo. I really would like to hear Alan's thoughts on KPI. So this is related to measuring success. Thoughts on KPIs and measuring people performance by numbers. So like taking a great human being, you know, it's full of all this potential and then just going, hey, here's your number. What do you think about that, Alan?
Well, I think a couple of things, Paolo. The first is that if you're measuring things that are easily assigned metrics, sales numbers, reduction in attrition, reduction in expenses, okay, fair enough. But KPIs really have to be related to the overall goals of the organization and your contribution to them. And a lot of them are not so easily measurable, and whose judgment are they key, which is the K part of this. So, I would say that there has to be an inclusive kind of consideration of what any individual is contributing to the outcomes that are expected. Part of those are probably going to be quantitative and measured by numbers, but part will be qualitative. In other words, if I move to help someone, it's not part of my job description, but I help coach them or mentor them on something to make them better. That might not be in a KPI, but it's awfully valuable.
Yeah. So because companies like want to, provide bonuses and things like that. What's the alternative?
What's the alternative to KPIs?
Yeah.
Well, I think the alternative is that you do this revolutionary thing. First of all, you never assign increases in pay to an annual kind of date. You don't assign them to a performance evaluation. All right. What you do is you ask a person how they're doing relative to their goals. You make sure that they've already bought into their goals. And then you ask them how they're doing toward their goals. And if their information is solid with you, you can reward them on that basis. If their information is either better or worse than you think, then you look into that and find out which one of you is wrong. But it's got to be a collaborative kind of thing. I don't like automatic annual raises. I don't like cost of living raises. I don't like merit increases that are tied not to merit, but to longevity. So I think you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit, even in bureaucratic organizations.
Oh, I like that. And that's a really great challenge for any consultant is how do you bring in that entrepreneurial spirit to government organizations, not-for-profits and things like that. Now, in that, you just mentioned like setting up some, like getting some clarity on what those performance indicators are. And something I learned from you is you talk about when it comes to success and not perfection, is actually setting up like minimum and maximum. Like, so when you're going into a conversation, what's the maximum success? Like setting up, rather than being, I need to hit this target, you've got a range to work with. I think it's really a really valuable concept. Can you share a bit about that on Talk the Walk?
Well, I call it min-max, right? And I'm going to screen share if that's okay, Leanne. Okay. So what are you laughing at? I'm screen sharing. It's high tech. There's a range of success. That's why perfection isn't important. There's a range, like a gauge, if you're outside of my fingers over here, look how clever I am. You're not going to be successful. But as long as you're inside my range, you're going to be successful. And so if let's say you're going to visit someone to try to make a sale, let's say that your minimum acceptable success is they find that it's interesting, they need to think about it, and they like to meet again with more questions, okay? Your maximum is they're so enthused about what you've said that they'd like to see a proposal and a contract. Now, as long as you're within there someplace, you've been successful that day. But if they're apathetic and they say, time's not right for us, don't come back, leave. That's not good. And sometimes on the other end, they say, oh my God, the greatest thing I've ever heard, get me a proposal tomorrow. Then they're just trying to get you out of their office, right? So min-max is really important and for personal purposes too.
Yeah.
Does your kid have to win the game or do they just have to have a good game? That's a question these parents should ask themselves who are busy fighting in the stands with other parents over their kids' performance.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the utility of min-max. And yeah, that's a really great sort of catchy phrase, is you can apply it to any aspect of your life, not just that prospect meeting. And I think we sort of think that success is, doing it to this level. But I think if you have a range there, it reduces the pressure. I think that's probably the best way that I've been able to get past getting it perfect is, hey, let's just do my best and, set those guardrails up. Now let's talk about, I mean, we are obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, we are of different ages. We were brought up in different eras. And so it'd be fun to sort of riff on some, is it okay that I say that,
It
Prince?
might be fun for you. I'm not sure I'm liking this, but go ahead.
I just wanted to share maybe a couple of articles that we can riff on in relation to this in terms of millennials. So this one came out around meeting punctuality, and it said, time optimists, why Zoomers are much less punctual than boomers. Now, look, I'm a millennial, but I'm never late to anything. And so I was kind of, I was like, no way, like this is not my generation saying this. But what are you finding? Do you think this is accurate? Do you think that younger people are less punctual than, say, people of your generation?
I'll say a couple of things. The first is that I absolutely despise putting generations in drawers with a name on the drawer with a label and saying this is Gen Z, these are Zoomer, this is this is that, this is the boomers. I hate that stuff because it's the ultimate form of bias. You're a certain age, and so I assign these attributes to you. The second thing I'll say is that studies have shown that a lot of people, for example, who are boomers, I'm the eldest boomer, some people who are boomers agree completely with some Gen Z people, and some boomers disagree with each other on social issues, on business, on politics, and so on. So I think we have to give ourselves more credit than that. And I don't see that any generation is especially late or especially punctual. I do think that expectations change with generations. And that's what we have to be very wary of. For example, I grew up poor post-World War. My father, was a paratrooper in New Guinea defending Australia. Yeah. And the soldiers came back. They were basically blue-collar people, and some went to college on the GI Bill. But, we were poor. So I was hungry, and I had to make it somehow. My kids, I couldn't make poor. My kids led a privileged life because that's how they grew up. You can't make your kids poor. So my wife and I tried to instill values in them, that was the best we thought we could do. But they have different kinds of expectations, My son said once, I grew up really getting anything I wanted. It's hard for me to let that go now. So I think it's important to understand that the elder of us lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so very little today scares me after that. I mean, that was as traumatic as you got people crying in the hallways in school. I mean, we thought it was nuclear war. You had Khrushchev, for God's sakes, and the Kennedy brothers, who had no idea how to govern. They were young. And so you had these ships, offshore. Today, there's a couple of Russian ships down in Cuba, 90 miles off the Florida coast. Nobody here cares. So what? So I think the differing expectations are important because there are different expectations about how to be treated at work, different expectations about how much you're supposed to devote to work, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if this has come out because, since COVID, there's been more of a focus on, I know you don't like splitting work and life, but people are like really optimizing for life. And so it just seems now when I talk to leaders, they're like, they really are talking about the younger generation, saying they just don't have the discretionary effort. They just don't have the same work ethic that we do, and this is a micro signal of that is being late to meetings. It's like one way of just demonstrating that. So I'm hearing that an awful lot. I try to challenge them, is it the person, not the generation, but it's coming from all different industries.
I think it's a cop-out. We had dinner in a restaurant last week that I generally have loved. It's a steak restaurant. It's about 30 minutes away. And when we went last week, it was very disappointing. All the food was not good. The appetizers weren't good. The steaks weren't good. And on the menu, it said that we're adding 3% to all credit card charges because of the state of the restaurant business. That's not the state of the restaurant business. It's the state of that management. And so they're using excuses. Now, when you and I are done here, it's 10 to 5 p.m. my time right now. Whenever we're done, I'm going to let the dogs out, hop in my car, and go over to one of my favorite restaurants and have dinner. And they're going to be jammed, right? They'll always let me in, but they'll be jammed. So I think a lot of people use excuses that there's too much government regulation, that these young people don't work, that COVID killed us, and on they go. But the fact is, bright management, bright leadership will always do well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, taking the sort of the accountability of that and showing there is actually a way, and giving our clients hope. Now, I'm going to give you an IP challenge based on this. So if you haven't been to one of Alan's workshops, he talks about getting a news article and then generating some content, or perspective on it. So, and it's sort of based on the generational differences thing here. So I will.
So IP, you mean intellectual property, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So even like, what would you, if you read this article and you had to write a LinkedIn post about it, what would you write? And so this is the article. It says millennials might hate cruises, but a yacht trip, that's another story. And it talks about chains like the Ritz-Carlton creating a luxury yacht and convincing people of my generation to get on that boat, which I would get on in a heartbeat. No doubt about it. Cruise ship, I haven't been on a cruise yet. What would you, if you read this article one morning over a coffee and you had to write a LinkedIn post on it, what would you write about this?
I'd write the following. Now, I have never seen this before. I would write the following, that there are cruises and there are cruises. And for example, my wife and I went on an Alaskan cruise, which we had never done. We helicoptered to a glacier. And in fact, this is a rock from the Mendenhall Glacier. It was absolutely thrilling.
Oh, wow.
We took a cruise on the Danube. Now, I tell you this because these cruises, the demographic was basically our demographic. There are other cruises where there are young parents with young kids. There are other cruises that have different kinds of demographics, but seldom do you see, and you can convince me there are exceptions, seldom do you see a cruise or even a vacation resort that has a vertical cut through all generations. Yeah. You'll find some, you'll find grandparents and grandchildren and so on. But generally, they know who their audience is, and that's who they appeal to. And the same occurs with, radio talk shows or whatever it is. I would bet you, that vacation trips, tours of Europe are probably the same, not just cruises. So my comments on that article would be, yeah, why not? Of course. And, people like to be with people of like interests. I think also, though, it's important that you're with people who are both older and younger, because that's how you learn. That's how you avoid stereotypes. And as long as you don't set yourself up as better, you don't have the hard work ethic I did, which should get you thrown overboard, really. As long as you don't set yourself up as better, but you really try to listen, that's different. And that's why I said before, it's about expectations. I hear a lot of people, not just with expectations that I didn't have, but with expectations that are not going to be fulfilled.
Yeah. And I look, in fairness, Alan, I could see you on the Ritz-Carlton yacht. So it's not just for millennials.
Well, in my garage, I have a couple of land yachts. I just
you do have land yachts. That's a cool. Yeah, hilarious. All right. So first of all, I just want to say lastly, I just want to say thank you all so much thanks for doing the IP challenge. And it's always great to chat to you, Alan, even over coffee and a martini. So thank you so much for being here today. We're at the 23-minute mark. We promised ourselves we wouldn't go over. Yeah, always enjoy our conversations, and we'll look forward to seeing next time on Talk the Walk.
Always good to talk the walk. Take care, everyone.
Cheers.